you rascal.
Reginald here. I'm working on that chain video still, and it's a doozy, so make sure you come back to see it when it's out. However, I'm here to quick summarize some results for some additional bolter versus thunderhammer testing that I did. My last video actually got a lot of comments, and I made sure to go through all of them, though I haven't had a chance to respond to everybody just yet. I will, don't you worry. However, I saw some basic comments that said things like, hey, your hammer actually blows because it's not built like XYZ, and you need to do this to make this a good weapon. And actually, the Iron Helm sucks. You need to use the Crucis in order to get these good results. Well, okay, I can do that. I happen to have a lot of them stored up. So I went and I found the best ones I had on the table that would match the required blessings. And I actually got really lucky rolling up an Iron Helm from a green that I had lying around with great stats. And I got a Thrust 4 Iron Helm with Head Taker 4, 25% Carapace armor damage, and I believe 20% flak damage. And results did not vary. Not much, anyway. It made it a little easier on the Iron Helm with these better blessings and better damage to get a clean kill. And the Crucis I actually had a fairly hard time with, I think mostly because of my defense stat being a little bit lower, made my dodges a little bit harder to pull off. But on the whole, I got very similar results to my previous tests. A little better, but not enough to really surprise. However, just to make this test a little bit more unfair against the bolter, I went and I grabbed a bolter with nothing. It's just a gray. Here you go. And that bolter did just swell. Now, some interesting results at least. Against Maulers, there wasn't a huge difference. Against Crushers, if I don't use any Chastise, it's not hard, but I will almost run out of ammo before I can kill 4 Crushers. So the blessings are making a pretty big difference on that. And that's important to note. However, I did all my testing with Chastise, with my hammer. Why shouldn't I do the same with my bolter? And guess what? If I do that, then I'm getting about the same time to kill as a heavily blessed bolt gun with no Chastise. So it's really just going in favor of the bolt gun still. And I know people are going to be like, well, why don't we just nerf the bolt gun then? But I don't want to nerf the bolt gun. I think it feels pretty good the way it is. And while it might be a little OP, unlike the combat axe, it at least has a sort of lore basis for feeling the way it feels and performing the way it performs. Don't get me wrong, it's a really strong weapon, and sometimes when someone pops ult with it or whatever and blows away the entire patrol of Crushers or Maulers that I was excited to go hit, that can be a bit of a bummer. But it does have to pay for that in being really slow against a lot of other targets because of its low ammo pool and its reload speed and all of that kind of stuff. And if you actually look at the scoreboards over time, I've seen a lot of veteran scoreboards where the difference between an MG12 las gun and a bolt gun in actual damage over the course of a game is not very different. And that's just, they just have different targets. So I want to be really careful before we go touch the bolter. Maybe we need to look at pinning fire. I can't tell from the testing that I've done here. But I don't want to like go ham on the bolter. So let's focus in on the thunderhammer because that's really the core subject. So the thunderhammer with the best possible blessings designed for the job is really not doing that much better than, say, the chain axe with a sort of a similar setup, right? Or an eviscerator with a similar setup, or an antax with a similar, with just a normal best in service blessings group. So to me, the problem is definitely not the bolter. It's that the thunderhammer is so far away from the bolter's performance. I think the thunderhammer, the Iron Helm, and the Crucis need to do a lot more special damage. They need to be really hitting big. And there's no reason for them not to. There's a ton of cost here to actually go in and actually hit targets in melee combat. I know you have infinite ammo, but you have to be in melee, which is riskier, and you have to wind up the attack, and you have to charge up the attack, and like there's all these costs associated with using this weapon, including being bad at hordes in melee, which is kind of the best place to be meleeing, right? And so it's really the case that there's enough costs that this weapon needs to slam for a big payload. Now, I don't want to buff thrust again. I want to buff the base weapon so that the weapon can perform very well with other blessings other than thrust, and then thrust can take it over the line on some stuff, and that'd be fine. So I think if you look at the statistics, the Iron Helm and the Crucis both need to be in the 15-second time to kill range or lower on Crusher groups of 4. I would like to see them very competitive with what a bolt gun can do. So that's probably charge, swing, one-hit kills on most of these targets. And that would give you a reason to be running into those patrols and trying to take on the risk of fighting them in melee. To me, that would be the most fun thing they could do with this weapon, and it wouldn't break the bank of the game because there's already weapons doing it, and I don't think they ruin the game either. I know Damnation is a little too easy for a lot of people, myself included, but I want the weapons to feel appropriate to the lore and the gameplay, and I want them to be relatively well balanced against each other. So it's okay for me, in my opinion, to say we need to buff the hammer to get it in line with where it should be, right? That's cool. That's a good thing. We can worry about making the game harder after that. For example, maybe Crushers need to move a little faster and be a little more threatening. Let's talk about that. But we don't need to say, oh, let's nerf all the weapons to make them weak so that we have to fight the enemies forever. I don't like bullet sponges anyway. We've got big 8-man teams of Crushers. Let's leverage that. Let's let that be fun. Let's let that be challenging because there's a lot of them and they can be more dangerous. Let's not make them bullet sponges. So buff the hammer. Reginald out. Have a good day. Bye-bye.